All right, good evening, everyone. Good evening. It's 7 p.m., February 26, 2026, and I'd like to welcome everyone in the room and those who are participating online as I call to order this meeting of the Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Board of Education for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. We value everyone's input and have made sure to dedicate a portion of this meeting to hear from you. In case you missed it, anybody wishing to speak tonight, there's a sign-in sheet right up there by the front door. We look forward to your comments during that time as it's indicated on the agenda. So with that, Mr. Gotham, please call the roll.
Mrs. Anderson,
Here.
Mrs. Dawn,
Here.
Mr. Kinsey,
Present.
Mr. Price,
Here.
Dr. Pryor.
Present.
5 present.
All right, we have a quorum. If you're able, will you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. All right, I do not believe we have anything for the treasurer's report tonight. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, I look forward to that at the next meeting. Does anybody have anything for correspondence? Anything that especially the rest of the board hasn't seen?
I do very quickly. The rest of you may have gotten this email, but in case you didn't, this is more for you, Dr. Crozet. This was one from OSBA, sent out an email, I think just today, that they're offering a way that school districts can show their appreciation by nominating up to 5 local businesses that are really supportive of the district. 4 just general nominations, and then you can submit one that was for a special project involving multiple businesses. I don't know, maybe 1 per building or something. I know, just a great way to honor some of our local supporters. I can, if you didn't receive that, Dr. Pitt, I'll forward it to you.
I received an email from a parent that was very appreciative of the discussion we had at our January working group meeting on Saturday. That we had, especially with, she was expressing her gratitude for the discussion that took place, Mr. Gotham's presentation on school funding. She thought it was very informative, and she appreciated the discussion and the challenges we face with the continued, I don't know exactly what words she would use, but what I would call dysfunctionality of our state funding of schools. And she really appreciated your briefing and, again, all of our discussion that followed. I think we really laid it on the table with each other, with the union, and I think the community appreciated her, as expressed by her, what we talked about that night. So.
All of our meetings, including that one, are available on YouTube, so maybe go check that out. It was a really thorough presentation. So.
Can you all hear us back there? I think these mics are more for YouTube. You can't hear us? So.
We'll speak up a little bit. Yeah, appreciate that. Anybody else have anything? All right. So give me a second here. We'd like to welcome up Sergeant Black. We have a little something for him.
Mm-hmm.
Bittersweet moment. Just want to take a moment to alongside Sergeant Black, been an SRO for many years, serving at the high school and middle school. We're so grateful for the partnership in general that we have with the township and the city of Bellbrook, school resource officers. But I know you've been just inspirational. You've served very honorably, very well. I just want to wish you well. Really appreciate everything. We have a certificate of recognition presented to Sergeant Craig Black for his dedicated service to students and staff as our school resource officer. Thank you very much again.
Just again, we appreciate obviously his presence, keeping everybody safe inside the school, outside the school with the traffic. You know, you do a fantastic job, and actually, you know, some insight on those little pylons or whatever they are at the middle school. It was your suggestion to try to keep the flow of traffic and keep everybody safe. So always looking to keep us safe and keep our students and our families and parents and everybody safe. So we really appreciate all your hard work and dedication and collaboration. Very collaborative, high school and middle school. Us in administration really appreciate that true collaboration, working on issues or problems and trying to solve them. So we really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Just like to thank Sugar Creek Township Police for allowing me to do this position. Chief Brown, thank you. Mary Tiffany, thank you for being here. Just the school has been an amazing blessing to work with these students and parents, and just kind of instill trust in law enforcement and the community and build those bonds. So it's been an honor and a blessing, and it was sad to go, but bigger and better things in life. So just growing for my family. So, but I appreciate everyone. Thank you.
Moving on to the sergeant's position, correct? Yes. Moving on to sergeant's position, so being promoted. So thank you all.
All right, so we will move into our reports to the board for tonight. Up first, we have some words from our district representative, Adam Romali, that he provided. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here tonight. The Greene County Career Center, which he's our representative there, they're having a really awesome open house right now, so he had to be at that. But he did provide a few words. So Dr. Kozad, anything to share?
So I'll just share a few things that he shared with me. The Greene County Career Center sworn board members from Greenville, Fairborn, Yellow Springs, and Bellbrook-Sugarcreek received a presentation on how the Greene County Career Center complies with cybersecurity requirements. Third, students from the electrical, wiring, and automotive collision presented a joint project they had completed. So the automotive students custom painted 28 safety helmets for the electrical wiring students. The electrical wiring students were impressed with the results. Their instructor commented the students were wearing their helmets more often and how proud of how they looked. The automotive collision students were able to practice painting intricate details, so each helmet was different and required significant planning and preparation to complete. He notes it was impressive to see students from both disciplines, how they presented their project. Lastly, the Greene County Career Center School Board approved the expansion of the Culinary Arts Department. It will now support more students. So the Culinary Arts students serve meals in January to Bridges of Hope residents in Xenia. And those are some things that he shares, so good things going on at the Career Center. So we appreciate all that he does for us in the Career Center.
I just came here from that open house, and if you haven't had the opportunity to check out that facility, it's beyond impressive. So even if your kids aren't interested in going there, it's worthwhile as a taxpayer just to see the awesomeness that your tax dollars are doing there. It's really
Providing our students an opportunity, if they want to go down that path, some great skills and job-ready skills when they get out of high school. They can go to work and they make some good money if they're interested in those kind of disciplines.
and some disciplines that are super high need as well.
Yep.
All right, thank you for that. Up next, we would like to welcome up Dr. Therese Monroe, the principal here at BCI, and it looks like maybe a few other guests. But thanks so much for hosting us tonight. We're happy to be here.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Kozad, Superintendent, Mr. Amit Gabba, Treasurer, Ms. Heidi Anderson, Dr. Eddie Pryor, Ms. Audrey Dorn, Mr. Mike Kinsley, and Mr. Kevin Price. Thank you for the opportunity to share at the board meeting this evening. It is truly an honor to highlight the incredible work taking place here at BCI. Recently, 3 teachers independently approached Mr. Ward and I with ideas to enhance students' educational experience. These were not assigned initiatives or required programs. They were inspired ideas rooted in passion, creativity, and deep commitment to children. Today, we will have presentations from 3rd grade teacher Lori Camp and Anna Hibner. They will share the journey of launching the Before School Dogman Book Club. What began as an idea to encourage reading has grown into an opportunity to build community and foster love of literacy beyond the school day. After which, Miss Amy Brewer, our fourth grade teacher, will speak about creating peer tutoring opportunities. She brought some of her students here with her to support her, and they will also be speaking. This initiative was brought to not only strengthen the understanding of the concept, but develop leadership and responsibility and confidence, which you will see momentarily. Miss Rachel Martin, a fifth grade teacher here, she will share how she expanded the science unit to include professionals working directly in the field. By connecting students with real-world experts, she makes classroom learning authentic and relevant. For the next few minutes, you will hear from teachers who empower and inspire futures. Their work reflects our commitment to excellence within the school district. Ms. Lori Camp and Mary Pemberton.
Good evening. My name is Lori Camp, and this is Anna Meredith. We, along with Jill Culler and Megan Tobin, had the pleasure of leading our third grade Dogman book club this winter with the release of the newest title, Big Jim Believes. We chose Dave Pelkey's Dogman series because of its unique ability to capture the hearts of students who have yet found their book. The students' response was overwhelming. We were thrilled to see our registration grew from 40 students in 2022 to 60 active participants this year. So once a week throughout the month of December, these students chose to arrive at school early, eager to dive into high-interest discussions and creative activities. Now Anna will share about what took place during our book club.
In book club, we shared our favorite parts of the story, created art, and built a community through games. Seeing these third graders choose to come to school early to celebrate a book is a testament to the reading culture we are building here. It was a rewarding experience for all of us involved. As you look at the following slide, you'll see the impact of this program in action. These photos capture our students immersed in their books, collaborating through interactive games, and most importantly, building a reading community. They weren't just reading a story, they were building a positive association with literacy that will stay with them long after the third grade. Now, Amy Brewer will be speaking about the fourth grade Tiny Teachers program.
Hello, I'm Amy Brewer. I teach fourth grade here at BCI, and today I'm going to share with you our Tiny Teachers program. The program is a peer tutoring program that our fourth graders provide to all the other fourth grade classes. The idea came to me when we were sitting in a teacher meeting and we were talking about how are we going to provide support for kids who are maybe struggling to catch on to different skills and lessons, or maybe they've been absent, and how are we going to get them caught up. And what came to my mind was my son actually doing peer tutoring at the middle school. And I thought, I have 22 really amazing kids who sit in my class every day who would be really, really great at this. So I approached Ms. Gann and Dr. Moreau about the idea, and they said, put together a proposal and share what we can do with this. So I pitched it to my kids, and they took off with it. They went from just coming up with a presentation of why we needed this program and how we need this program, down to creating logos to represent the program, to providing incentives for kids that come to the classes with them and work with them. And so every Monday and Friday, they meet with other students and help them work on whatever lessons they need to work on. But today, I'm going to let them tell you what this program looks like, sounds like, feels like to them. Before we do, on the next slide, I'm going to share what some of my kids have written about it. All right, together. Lila said that. She's here with us today. We help kids do better, tiny teachers. Kids just keep on coming. I never thought kids could help the whole fourth grade. I always say, tiny kids, big minds. Max shared that with us. Friend Ada said that too, and she's going to come on up. To get started, we're going to have kids who wrote the essay for Dr. Monroe and Mr. Ward that got this program started. So Miss Avery and Miss Lizzie and Miss Clementine and Mr. Percy are going to come up and share what they shared to get us rolling. Come on.
And their speech is on the next slide if you want to read along.
Tiny Teacher by Lizzie, Percy, Clementine, and Avery. If your students are struggling with schoolwork or urban time, you should go to Tiny Teacher. Tiny Teacher is a peer tutoring program that we have created. It can help every person and save teachers' time. Tiny Teachers will also build up the tutor's leadership and confidence as they teach other students more information from the student's point of view. It can even help the tutors understand too. The supplies we need are very little and the students can bring it themselves. We did it because it doesn't just help the person who will be tutored, it also helps the tutor. The students get extra help doing the work they really struggle on or completing unfinished work. Tiny Teachers knows how the students feel, and when in small groups it can save a lot of time for teachers. It will of course help the students as they learn new perspectives from the Tiny Teachers. We understand how you feel and we understand how to do it your way where you understand it best. It will also help socially for people to get along and make stronger connections with a smaller group, making it more fun. In conclusion, it will help every type of person who brings it in every way. Another reason we started a tutor program is that tutors build confidence and leadership. When students teach someone, they enjoy helping with the things they understand. And when they understand that concept, we can teach them. The confidence also helps leadership skills. The leadership comes from teaching that we do. Tutors with confidence and leadership are excellent. This is why Tiny Teachers is a program. Finally, Tiny Teachers saves times for school teachers. They can now have multiple students learning at their own pace at the same time. The teacher can teach one thing, while the tutor can teach another. Many subjects can now be taught at the same time. School teachers can grade homework or tests. Tiny Teachers benefit both school teachers and students. We also need some materials for our Tiny Teachers program. We'd like to have some more towards it. We need whiteboards, we will have whiteboards and we will advise teachers to send students to peer tutoring with pencil and paper and bring their Chromebook. If you can also get us a Carter basket to hold peer tutoring supplies, and that would save a lot of people. Thank you. In conclusion, Tiny Teachers is a program because it helps both students and tutors. Only materials that are easy to bring are needed. It builds important attributes and saves teachers time. If you let us do this, it will make today better than yesterday and tomorrow better than today.
My next Tiny Teachers who are coming up are going to share how the program runs before our tutors children come in while they're there and then after they leave, because they have jobs through all of them. And then we have a couple friends who are here representing as well. So Miss Ada's gonna present, Miss Lila's gonna present, Ms. Oh my gosh, Rowan is gonna present, nerves. And Mr. Max and Miss Amber are here to join us too. I mean, oh yeah, he's gonna come up and sit down with you now. So come on up so you're represented. They wanna go on the steps.
Our person that was supposed to do what we did before it could not make it here today. So, I'm just doing what we're doing in the tutoring session. Hi, my name is Ada, and in Tiny Teachers, we help other fourth graders understand their classes better. In this session, they meet their tutor and start learning. They don't just learn, they also can become friends with their tutor. As you may have heard, we only do fourth graders and are looking to expand throughout the school. Back to what we do. After we start, if we have any problems, we ask our amazing teacher. We would like to say a special thanks to Dr. Monroe, Mr. Ward, and Miss Fuller, our amazing teacher, for letting us and helping us do this program. I'm Rowan. I'll tell you what we do after we do a peer tutoring session. After we tutor, we take the notes we have written about how our student did to their online teacher, as well as walk them to their class. On the other hand, if our students are good, they earn 1 tutor token. Once they get 5 tutor tokens, they can trade it in for a sofa. That is what we do after a Tiny Teacher session. Hi, I'm Lila, and I'm going to kind of talk about how Tiny Teachers benefits the kids and the tutors. So Tiny Teachers is a great way for us all to learn and practice what we're doing in class. It helps us all connect and just grow together kind of, and I think it's really important that we can pursue our dreams, and yeah, so I think Tiny Tutors is a great way for us all to learn and keep going.
And these are my tiny teachers, and I'm so incredibly proud of these kids. They're just amazing. Good evening. I am Rachel Martin.
Kids don't try to show and I teach 5th grade science here at BCI. At the very beginning of the school year, I asked my students to draw a picture of what a scientist looks like to them. When doing this activity, it was apparent that most, not all, but majority of my classes had it in their mind that scientists are old men with white hair and glasses, if that sounds familiar. Doing the activity at the beginning of the year opened the idea to bring in guest speakers that align with our science units. I wanted my students to see firsthand scientists in our community. I wanted students here at BCI to possibly see themselves in a career that they may have previously pictured as unachievable. Bringing in guest speakers has been so valuable for our students. During the first quarter, we welcomed engineers from a company called Midmark. This company designs and manufactures specialized medical, dental, and animal health equipment. When the engineers from Midmark came in, they were the complete opposite of what my students had described as a scientist to be. There were 3 women in their 20s with no white hair. During their time at BCI, students learned about different types of engineers. They learned that you don't have to be great at math or great at science to become an engineer, but rather you need to be a strong problem solver. Our students then got the opportunity to use their knowledge of the engineering and design process to create veterinary tables for animal figures that they brought in. The engineers then showed the students how to test their prototype and determine what their next changes would be. At the end of the activity, I felt my students were engaged, excited, and took more interest in our topics. Here we go.
Later in the semester, we had a local wildlife conservationist come to BCI with animals that she has rescued. The conservationist talked about animal adaptations, habitats, and how different species are being mishandled. She shared stories about how she became a wildlife rescue zoo owner, how she took trips to research and save animals, and how our students here at BCI can use their knowledge of ecosystems to help save animals one step at a time. Bringing in the wildlife conservationist aligned perfectly with our ecosystems unit and showed our students an extremely unique career path. This year I really wanted to show the 5th graders at BCI that scientists are all around us. Finding quality guest speakers is very difficult, so my goal for this year is to focus on the fall semester. I think things went wonderfully and I was able to find 2 extremely informative and interactive speakers to share about their careers. So my goal for next year is to have 1 each quarter, and then the year after, hopefully 1 per unit, which would be 6 total. So, thank you for your time this evening. I'm going to pass it off to Mr. Ward.
All right, good evening. I'm Mr. Ward. I'm the assistant principal here at BCI. First thing I want to do is give thank you to our incredible teachers that presented tonight. Mrs. Camp, Mrs. Meredith, Ms. Brewer, and Ms. Martin. And to all the students who brought along these initiatives to life, thank you also for presenting. What we just saw perfectly illustrates our foundational belief that empowered teachers inspire futures. I want to take a moment to highlight the profound impact these programs that we talked about tonight have on our student growth. Starting with our 3rd grade Dogman Book Club, research strongly indicates that reading for pleasure is one of the primary drivers of a long-term academic success. By turning reluctant readers into enthusiasts and growing the club to 60 students this year, Mrs. Camp and her team are building critical foundation literacy in a supportive community. 4th grade, our Tiny Teachers program, leverages what researchers call the protege effect. The concept that the best way to master a subject is to teach it. Because our students built this from the ground up, even taking the initiative to write and present to Dr. Monroe and myself, they're deepening their own academic knowledge while building vital confidence, empathy, and leadership skills. Sound right? Yeah. All right, and then Miss Martin's 5th grade partnership with Midmark brings authentic project-based learning to life. Studies consistently show that when students connect classroom science to real-world tasks, like designing those veterinarian tables alongside those engineers under a deadline, they retain knowledge longer and build essential critical thinking skills. I'm immensely proud of the passion, innovation, and intentional excellence happening at Bell Creek Intermediate every day. So good work. And I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Monroe to close us out.
This concludes our presentation tonight. Thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to speak. Do you have any questions for us that our teachers or our little tiny teachers or our adult teachers can answer?
Just a quick comment. I am so grateful that you've come out tonight and done this, because it is so easy for us as school board members to forget why we actually do what we do, and to get out here. And I guess we just don't have the opportunity, so when opportunities like this present itself, it just warms my heart to see these little smiling faces out here and hear them get up there and talk and do the Pledge of Allegiance with a different tone of voice than we do, and so I am deeply grateful that you've taken the time to do this, and thank you for what you do, learning to care for other people, and it's just really kind of made my day here today, so thank you very much.
That was absolutely delightful, and those are fantastic ideas. The tiny tutors, the book club, bringing in the scientists. We have amazing teachers, creative teachers, and super creative students, that's for sure. So those are just absolutely wonderful. That is so impressive.
I have a question, and I know most of you are tiny teachers, but do you have a favorite Dogman book? Shout it out if you do.
Oh, yeah.
Ada? The third, what's the title of that one? You remember? Nice. All right, I'm going to write that down, because I probably have it in a room in my house. So. Thank you so much for coming, guys.
My high school son still reads the Dogman books.
Yeah, I
I'm
middle
trying to
school.
get him a little
Yeah,
bit further, but no.
Can high school kids join the Dogman Book Club?
I don't know. We'll have to ask
They
Miss
have to
Gay.
start their own.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, thank you very much. Very, very impressive. I concur with everybody up here. Kids, very impressive. And it's true. If you teach somebody something, that's when you really got to know it, right? If you're teaching somebody else, so not only are you helping the other students, you're helping yourself. So very impressive, and what very interesting ways of Dogman book, of getting kids involved, coming to school early to read, very impressive, and then the real world applications in 5th grade, very, very impressive, very interesting, very interesting. So, thank you.
One more round of applause. Thank you. All right, well, we can pause for a moment. If anybody needs to leave, we will not take any offense. There might be some Dogman reading that needs to be done tonight. Thank you so much for coming,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great job.
Good job, Rowan.
People in the background.
That was delightful.
Good stuff.
Nobody's here. Truly, I just love it.
Yeah. She's over.
Okay, great.
Swimming upstream. She's trying to.
Hello. All right, for our next report to the board, we would like to welcome Ms. Betsy Gann, our Director of Curriculum. Thanks so much for being here.
So this is irrelevant, right? You'll click for me? Delay. So, that's a tough act to follow. So thank you so much, Bell Creek administration, teachers, students, and families. That was really impressive, and I'm sure Mr. Haynes' presentation will be right up there. So I appreciate all the colleagues I work with. Thank you so much for being so supportive and fantastic. Tonight I'm going to just talk a little bit about Summer Advantage. It's that time of year again to kind of look forward to the new year, the 26-27 school year, and working backwards from that, giving kids an advantage, so to speak, in the summer to help us with that summer slide. So we know from research that students on average, in the early years anyway, lose about 2 months of learning. That's super critical for reading because we need that in every single subject. And 85% of reading development happens before 6th grade. So we do focus on the middle grades, students leaving Stephen Bell from 2nd grade up through middle school now. So the next slide, program components. Our Summer Advantage program is pretty much a well-oiled machine at this point. We're going to go back one if that's okay. Oh, yeah, back one. Okay, we'll go there. Thank you, I apologize. So we do focus on the science of reading. You've heard a lot about that over the last couple years, few years actually. So we have fluency, comprehension, vocabulary and language, phonics and word recognition, and phonemic awareness. The foundation at the bottom, and then we build up to those comprehension skills. So we call those the Big Five, and that's certainly the focus at Stephen Bell from kindergarten forward. We continue that focus. As you know, Ohio has certainly taken that on as a requirement in Ohio schools to focus on the Big Five science of reading and to practice those instructional methods based on research. All right, the program components. Again, the well-oiled machine occurs in the summer. We do Summer Advantage, like summer school, for 3 weeks, and that's intensive instruction focused on those early reading skills like the last slide showed. Small groups, we have a pretty low teacher-student ratio, which makes that even more effective. When you only have them for a few hours a day for a few weeks in the summer, we want that to be really powerful. And we do that for 3 hours a day, Monday through Thursday only, Fridays off. And this coming summer, we're going to start that July 13th and conclude on July 30th with your support as a board, please. And the program is from 9 a.m. to noon, and we do have transportation available for those that request it, and Lori Smith does a fantastic job of coordinating that. It's not that easy when you don't have typical routes like you do during the school year. On the next slide, this goes back to how the reading instruction is really designed. We target families of students who have been on a reading improvement and monitoring plan. That is a requirement in the state of Ohio beginning in kindergarten up through grade 6 this year, going into 7th next year. So that is going up a grade level. It's no longer just the 3rd grade reading guarantee, it's a reading guarantee. So the screener kind of evolves over time to include the Ohio State test for reading. So students that don't score proficient or 700 have to have an intervention plan, fair. We have some deficits there that we want to work on. So that happens during the school year. Stephen Bell, Bell Creek, and this year in 6th grade, we have those students in a specific intervention period. So those are the students that we are targeting. So we'll have state testing results back toward the end of April for English language arts, so we'll know who those kids are, and they'll receive that invitation. The kids that are on reading improvement plans going into the spring, we will invite them, and then we may have to catch a few based on late spring test results. On the right, I apologize, on that last slide, this shows you the kind of scientific approach we really take to determining what the deficits are when students aren't performing at benchmark or passing the OST. We give MAP, you're probably very familiar with that, and the OST I mentioned, the Ohio State test beginning in grade 3 for reading. And then we look at those scores and students scoring in a certain percentile, etc. We go a little deeper. So why is that? You know, that test is very broad. It covers all the state standards for that grade level, or almost all of them. So it's hard to say, is it a fluency issue? Is it vocabulary? Is it pure phonics? So we try to keep going deeper and making decisions so that we can figure out the root cause of that reading issue. So that's one example. That's actually one from Bell Creek. We have a decision tree we use at Stephen Bell, and then one at the middle school, because the needs change and the targeted areas and the assessments look different at different grade levels. The instructional strategy, I've kind of hit on those a little bit. In the summer, we do teach explicit phonics depending on what the student needs. And we teach that through a multisensory way, and that is evidence-based, and that aligns to what's happened in the early childhood classrooms at Stephen Bell. And we teach fluency specifically, vocabulary, and all of those things lead to better comprehension. And growth is the goal. We know that here in our district, we focus on growth regardless of where you begin at the beginning of the year, whether you're top of the class or a student that might be struggling in reading or any other subject. We believe all students can move forward. So looking at growth as our goal in the summer, this is real data from last summer. These are all isolated skills, letters A through L, and I'll show you a table on the next slide. Those are actual reading skills, and you can see the positive growth that the group of students, for example, working on skill J, that is the growth. Skill L, that was significant growth. So everything is positive, and for a 3-week period, 3 hours, 4 days a week is pretty impressive. On the next slide, we show what that skill complexity looks like. Remember, we saw A through L, I believe it was, and these are the actual skills that they work on very specifically with materials that support a summer learning schedule. So anything from letter names, the more basic, that letter A on the last chart, all the way up through more complex skills like multisyllabic words. The expected outcomes, growth I've mentioned already, confidence. A lot can be said for just having confidence about reading skills, and regression prevention to kind of combat that research I showed at the beginning of the presentation where, a couple of months of learning can be lost over that summer break. And then academic readiness. We really wanted to schedule Summer Advantage to be as close to the beginning of the school year as possible. And July is kind of where we landed. If we get any closer to the first day of school, that makes it difficult in the building and with the teachers that are helping support the program. Yeah, we'll go to the next slide. The next steps, I've already mentioned the program details. Monday through Thursday only, 3 hours a day. Those dates, July 13th through the 30th is what we're looking at from 9 to noon. We'll be posting teachers and aides. We do invite all students that are on a RIMP, a Reading Improvement Monitoring Plan, and any student who is receiving special education services in the area of reading. And we have a program coordinator position, Michaela Andry formerly. She's here at Bell Creek as a reading interventionist. She really handles the logistics of the day-to-day and works with me during the spring to kind of get it all kicked off. And the invitation to register goes out early May, and we ask for RSVPs by May 15th. We try to do that as early as possible, but it's kind of difficult. By the time we post for teachers and then invite students, then we look back, we've got X number of students accepted, X number that need transportation, so now we need this number of teachers and aides depending on their needs. They may need aid support per their individual education plan. So it all seems to work out with this timeline. And then the transportation I've already mentioned. And I think that concludes the presentation. I'm proud of that work. The teachers did an amazing job, and it's very impressive teaching, reading, all those very specific skills, especially in those early grade levels. Stephen Bell teachers know it well. And then it transitions. Third grade is just a big boom with all of the state testing beginning in the fall on a computer, and we're putting all those reading pieces together, and I'm really proud of the work they do here in third grade, given all those stressors for sure. So this is a program that definitely supports those kids and those teachers, so those kids are more ready. So thanks for your support of this in the past, and we hope you'll be supportive of this for the summer.
Betsy, how many typically teachers and how many students do you typically see?
Yeah, last summer we had about 45 students in the program. We had about, what was it? How many teachers did we say, Doug? Yeah, we had 8 to 10. We had 10 sort of like in the wings. Some people had to leave for a vacation. I try to have teachers commit to all 3 weeks so it's more consistent for the students. That's sometimes difficult. So then you kind of have to cast a wider net. Like, okay, if we get 10 teachers, then we'll make sure we have subs and they're teachers, not traditional, sub kind of plans. And then we had aides, probably 4 or 5. This past year and in previous years, about 50% of the invitees accept, It was a little bit lower last year.
Mm.
We invited, I think, 110 and ended up with like 45.
Do you see a significant disparity between those that come and those that don't? I mean, is there, I guess, or do you even track that?
Haven't tracked that yet.
Yeah.
Haven't tracked that yet. I can pull that pretty easily.
It's just curious question.
That's
Yeah.
definitely a good question.
And then, obviously, the kids tonight were really excited about what they get to read. Are they able to weave some fun reading into this, or is it just really kind of dry and?
For 3 hours, I'm sure they do. They
Yeah.
do a good job with making it interesting, and the kids get breaks, and they're very conscientious about that. I'm not sure that there's a lot of free reading, like
Okay.
choice, because they're working on very specific
Right,
skills.
indeed, yeah.
Now, with some of the kids, as they're getting older and maybe they're only working on vocabulary, then you have more freedom. But that would be fantastic. The numbers would probably go way up. And it does get more challenging as the student gets older. We're going to have reading improvement monitoring plans in 7th grade. So if you go through those specific reading assessments I showed you on the chart, and you've identified some early phonics development issues, it's a really tough sell with a 6th or a 7th grade student to engage in pure phonics lessons. So it is a curriculum challenge that I talk with those teachers at the middle school about, with Zach, with looking at every year we're going to have older students, including high school eventually. For the most part, their needs sort of evolve into like vocabulary, so you do have an opportunity to make it more adolescent friendly, but that continues to be a challenge with what Ohio specifically wants, those specific interventions around those early reading skills versus what a student experiences in school in their interest level, because motivation is a big factor.
Seems like a great program and needed. And
thank you. Yeah, it could be bigger. I mean, it's difficult to exclude grade levels or cut off numbers. We haven't had to cut off numbers, but I can see that you can only service as many students as you have staff to safely and efficiently, productively teach to. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. We did have on our agenda tonight to hear from Mrs. Pritchard, our Director of Special Education. Unfortunately, she is not feeling well. She's ill tonight, so we will look forward to that report at a future meeting. And that moves us into committee reports. Oh, did I miss one? Yeah, I did.
Oh, no. I'm
No,
sorry.
he
I'm
does have
sorry.
to do-
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
Let me check. Where is that?
You're right.
Okay. All right, committee reports? No, you're fine. We'll start tonight with our OSBA Legislative Liaison, Dr. Pryor.
all right, I have looked at 100 or so bills floating around in the house, and I'm not going to mention all those. There's most of them are just in a committee, and who knows what might come of them. One interesting bill, House Bill 269. House Bill 3 would establish a school safety bus grant program so schools can apply for grants for bus safety equipment. That's already passed the House, so that might happen, and that sounds like a good bill. And a few other interesting ones that, haven't gone far, but would be kind of interesting. House Bill 304 would let students use club sports and other sports to count as a PE credit, like outside of school. Let's see. Senate Bill 330 would allow districts to count mental health days as excused absences. And let's see. House Bill 322 would bring back the presidential physical fitness test for students, so that could be fun.
The BSIT reach.
Yeah. So anyway, there's plenty of others.
Still gives me nightmares. The BSIT reach.
So anyway, there's most things aren't far enough along to mention, And anything to do with property taxes, I'm going to let Amit talk to us about when it's time, because I think he'll do a better job.
All right, any questions for Dr. Pryor?
Just wonder about that school bus safety grant, because we got a school bus
You
safety
did,
grant
yeah.
this year, so I wonder why there's another bill.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It
About
passed the House.
$30,000.
Yeah,
Take more.
Yeah,
Bring it.
Yeah, maybe it's another grant.
Right.
We'll take it.
It's a grant program, I guess. I'm
Good.
not sure. Yeah.
All right, thank you for that. Mrs. Anderson, anything for our Capital Conference liaison and student achievement?
Yeah, student achievement, they sent out quite a big packet this time. Again, they're still tracking all of the data from the pandemic, and there's reporting that Ohio is still 1/3 of a grade level behind its 2019 achievement levels. Happily, I don't think Bellbrook has been affected by that, and I think that's partly due to getting kids back in quickly, and so we haven't really had that lag in data. So they're just still talking about all of that. And then also, you know, we continue to rank high on the niche and U.S. News rankings, so that was awesome. We just celebrated Public Schools Day. And then also there was a big article, which is kind of one of the things that interests me, was the AI. We are compliant with the AI bill. There has to be a policy in place by July 1st, and ours is already in place, 7540. It is definitely, they're looking at how data in the classroom grades they are afraid it may be starting to be skewed versus the testing data, because when the kids are using AI to complete classwork, things like that. So that'll be interesting to watch that data pan out.
Comments or questions? Thank you very much. Back to Dr. Pryor, BSCF.
Okay. So, the Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Education Foundation, we are having our first fundraiser of the year. This is going to be so much fun. On April 29th, we're having the Harlem Wizards, entertainment comedy basketball team, come play at the high school against our faculty. I'm pretty sure Dr. Kozad's already practicing his layups.
Practicing a lot.
And,
Three-point shot.
yeah. So they're coming, and we're selling tickets. Student ticket is $15, and adult ticket is $18. And it's just going to be super fun on April 29th. All the profits are going to go to the our teacher grant program. So the Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Education Foundation, what we do is try to create fun community events that would raise money, and all the money goes to teacher grants. So our wonderful teachers, like the ones here, for their ideas, their creative ideas that require a little more money that's in the normal school budget, they can apply for a grant from BSCF. And in fact, the one picture with the lady holding the falcon, BSCF gave some money for that, to bring that to the school. So we do a lot of extra things for the teachers, and we want to raise money for that. And the Harlem Wizards will be so much fun. And also, if anyone wants to join the Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Education Foundation, we'd love to have new members. Thanks.
Yeah, there's been, so we're trying to solicit new members, and I think we have maybe 9 now, 7 to 9.
There are a few new people,
Yeah, so a
yes.
few new people, so fantastic. People have stepped up and want to be a part of it, so I really appreciate people doing it. It's great.
Basketball game sounds fun.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Dr. Pryor, is there already word on the color run? Does that?
That was tentatively scheduled for, I think, June 13th, but we're not quite sure. It's kind of on hold at the
Still in the
moment.
works. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
All right, up next, Mr. Price for our Financial Advisory and Safety Committee.
Yeah, I don't have really much to say there because both those committees will be meeting here in the spring. So whatever update, I think we had another update earlier this year, didn't we? So I gave an update then. So more to follow, but there's some exciting things we'll discuss about later in the agenda tonight relative to safety that I'm really pleased to see. So and there'll be some implementation. Assuming that goes forward, discussions that will have to take place kind of behind closed doors about how we can improve some of our safety stances, with protecting our children and our staff in our schools. So only good things to say on the safety side. And financial, we're just going to have to ride it out with what's going to happen at the state level, with what's going to happen with funding in light of this movement to abolish property taxes in Ohio. And if that happens, it's going to be a major, frankly, a nuclear event across schools and townships, cities. And at this point, there's nothing we can do, about it. We'll just have to react based on how that turns out. But that's the kind of thing that can get discussed in the Financial Advisory Committee. But again, if you go back and look at our meeting in January, there was a very in-depth discussion about this matter of financing for the district. And again, thanks to Mr. Godham for a phenomenal, wonderful, thorough presentation and a good, robust discussion among our school board members about how we can potentially go forward. But we're essentially just riding along. It's outside of our control at this point. But yeah, that's about it.
Questions for Mr. Price? All right, and neither myself nor I think Mrs. Dorn have anything for active shooter response team implementation committee. Just haven't had a need to meet the last few months. Had a few months ago. All right, with that, we can welcome up our high school principal, Mr. Han, who's going to talk to us about the evolution of recognition over the years. As always, thanks for being here.
Thank you. A few meetings ago, I was asked to present about how we recognize students at the high school.
Specifically valedictorian, salutatorian. And so that's what I'm going to do today. So we're going to kind of discuss the evolution of recognition. So to understand where we are and where we're going, we need to kind of look back at the origin. Clicker here. Does that work?
Pointed at me. There's a little bit of a delay.
Oh, nice. Okay. Of recognition. So originally, and I mentioned this, I believe, last time, the roles or the titles of valedictorian and salutatorian were roles and not ranks. They were ceremonial roles. Both titles come from Latin, and I'm going to butcher this because I don't speak Latin. Really, no one knows how to pronounce them anyway anymore. But valedicere means basically to say farewell, and salutare meant to greet. So they were kind of the opening speech, your welcome, and they were like your goodbye speech and a ceremony. So again, roles, not ranks. It's a relatively recent thing that they're now tied to GPA calculation. It's a relatively recent development. So, in the 1700s, in colleges primarily, that's kind of where these titles start showing up. And they were selected, they were speakers and selected by the faculty. Sometimes they're based on oral exam, sometimes people audition for them, sometimes just as a group. They were selected to give a speech. And that's kind of how it stayed through the 1800s and into the early 1900s, the mid 1900s. If you've ever seen an old report card from the turn of the century, there is no GPA. There are no percentages. It's kind of a, hand grenades and horseshoes. We'll give them a B. Like they're like a B. That's kind of how it was. I look back at my great-grandfather's report cards, and not very impressive for one. But also you wouldn't recognize half the classes on there, and what they were measuring back then and what they were teaching back then, very different than what we're doing today. So by the mid-1900s, so into the 50s, the 4.0 GPA is introduced, which kind of gave you a quantitative ranking system. Now, back then, you have to remember, especially if you're in Bellbrook, you may have 16 kids in a class, 20 kids in the class, all taking the same classes. There are no AP classes. There are no specialized classes. We're measuring apples to apples. Later, when we get into the 90s, early 2000s, we start to see the introduction of weighted GPAs to account for AP courses and things like that, which are kind of becoming in vogue. And now, today, we have the debates of is it still a thing or not? There's debates over gaming the system. Now we have CCP classes included. Now we have just recently CTEC or CTE courses being included from the career centers. It's not the 16 kids in the graduating class of 1950 or however many kids there were, you know, all taking the same courses, all with the same opportunities, all on the same track. So it's very different. So, at VHS, and I can speak to this because I've been here way too long, all right? Back in the days, I can dig into things, and I go back into old handbooks and things like that. We were on the straight 4.0 scale probably up until about 2004. Somewhere around 2004, we started having the AP courses come in, and we are trying to decide in this district how we'll differentiate between the AP courses and the other courses to kind of reward kids for that rigor. So from 2004 up through about 2015, we used something called quality points. So whatever AP course you're in, you got a 0.05 added to your GPA. So after 7 semesters, they took the GPA, they counted up, okay, you're in this many AP courses, and they, 0.05 times, let's say, 10, and they would add that total to your GPA, and that's how they would determine about a joint student for you back in the day. Now, 2015 introduces CCP, and it's kind of the Wild West at that point. The state mandated that CCP courses are treated the same as AP courses. The problem is, and the difference is, that you're going to earn credits in CCP twice as fast as you can in an AP course. So it changed a bit. So back in 2015, we were able to offer a significant number of courses in-house. Negotiated with Urbana University when that was still a thing, Wright State, Sinclair, Clark State. We had courses taught in our high school from all of those places. 1 or 2 per department and some other things. And we didn't see a ton of kids leaving campus to go chase CCP credits on campus because we offered a bunch here. Now the state then started locking that down a little bit, saying how you could offer courses and kind of regulating a little bit more who could teach those courses, so a lot of those courses kind of fell away. So we did not have the people with the degrees necessarily to carry on those anymore. So as time went on, we saw the effects, and we knew it from day one, that CCP was going to change the game. That they would definitely have an advantage over kids staying in-house taking the AP courses. So we did some things to try to change that around, try to mitigate that. That's when we went back to, we introduced weighting of honors classes at 4.5 in-house. We then moved to 3 years ago, probably like 6 or 8 years ago, we introduced the idea of moving to weighted GPA to kind of mitigate some of that advantage that CCP had. And that has been in effect, this is year 3, I believe. And it had the effect. It closened and narrowed the gap between the kids taking a ton of CCP classes and the kids staying home and doing more AP classes. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Before we move on there,
yes.
Ken, so make sure I understand here. When you
Say like
2015, Val-Sal status based on 4.0 scale plus 0.05
Yes.
points per AP course. Okay, but it has to be somehow grade affected too, right? So if you get a C, you're not going to
Well,
get
it's based on your GPA. So if I have a 4.0, that's straight A's and everything, my GPA is 4.0.
Okay.
All right, and I have a second person who's also a 4.0. We're both at 4.0s.
Okay.
But student A has taken 10 AP classes and CCP classes. Student B has taken 8.
Okay.
10 times 0.05, 8 point. That is added to your GPA, and that differentiates the two.
So this only comes into play when people are
for ranking purposes.
At least 4.0, and then they're basically.
Well, it could be anything. It could be a 4.85 or 3.85. It could be anybody really, depending on how many. You could have a kid take 18 CCP courses, and it'd be 18 times 0.05. So it skews the system. If I had a chalkboard, I'd draw it up. I don't do math in my brain.
So they're grading that CCP or grading the AP doesn't directly relate to the point boost. It's just a flat out, you
Correct.
took the course.
0.05, no matter what you got, and
passed
it's
it.
just, and it's based on, I mean, it's added to your GPA.
Your cumulative GPA,
Your
not your
cumulative
GPA
GPA, yeah.
for that
Correct.
class. It's your weighted.
Right. The 0.05 is not a percentage to your grade. It's a percentage to it's a number added to your cumulative GPA.
Okay. All right.
Now, if you read our handbooks, ever since I've been here, we say we do not rank. We're a competitive school. We do not rank. But obviously, we're ranking. In-house, we rank. You know, it's not publicized, but we're still doing it, at least unofficially for Val and Sal and things like that. So here's the problem. As so many other things in education, the legislature has an impact. And this is all coming from state mandates, how we treat certain courses. You know, AP courses are very rigorous. A lot of CCP courses are too. Some are not as rigorous as some that are taught in our building. Okay? And now we have the CTAG courses coming from the Career Center and other tech programs, which also are going to be treated as the same weight as an AP course. Okay, so we're not really comparing apples to apples, and we haven't been for some time. And it's just good. Now we have oranges and we have bananas and we have all sorts of stuff.
Hey Dave, before you go on, the
Yeah.
courses from the Career Center, is that every course?
It's
from the
not
Career
every
Center?
course.
It's
It's
the ones
courses
in
that
their
have
lab?
web exams at the end. So in-house, I think we'll have 3 that are in our house, in-house, 1 in engineering, I think 2 in biomed. And there's a handful of courses at the Career Center, but there will be more. But we don't have control over,
You get a
and we don't
certificate at
teach.
the
and we
end
don't-
of
yeah.
the course, like I did aircraft mechanics and I did my
They could have
AP.
something at the end of their program, 1 or 2 courses that would then be treated like AP courses for GPA purposes. And we don't really know, it's a new thing and it's kind of growing. And for us, it's, you know, we have a lot of kids who go to the Career Center, but, you know, I don't see it, that piece, CTAG, skewing us too much. I don't see necessarily, not to say it couldn't happen, but one of our students go to the Career Center is all of a sudden going to be the valedictorian, if we have valedictorian. But schools in our county, some of our smaller schools where 75% of their senior class goes to the Career Center, that could be more of an effect on them. We don't really know. It's too soon to find out. So here's the thing. AP programs obviously are awesome. That track is awesome. CCP, also awesome. CTAG, great as well. There's 3 different paths. They all serve a purpose, and each group of kids following those paths are doing it for a reason. Okay? It may be more beneficial for a kid to do CCP because they're going to stay in Ohio and they can earn a lot of credits for free. And that's the right path for that kid. There are kids who maybe you're looking to go out of state where the CCP courses aren't guaranteed to transfer. Or maybe you're trying to go Ivy League or something like that. And the AP then is going to be the proper path for those kids. Then you have the kids, the proper path is to go to the Career Center or take those tech classes. They're all good. You know, they all have a great benefit, but they're delivered differently, they're built differently, and they have different purposes. But by state law, and for this purpose, they're all being treated the same. And so when they're weighted exactly the same for class rank, these kind of small structural differences create inequalities, give advantages to some kids over others. And then when we only honor 2 kids, only recognize 2 kids, those inequalities are magnified greatly. So, the legislature has kind of created a divergence here. Okay, and I mentioned it earlier, but a student who is taking CCP courses that are semester classes, and they're weighted the same as a full year high school class. They are 1 credit. The state of Ohio has also mandated that semester college class counts the same as a full year high school class, sometimes more. All right? So for ranking purposes, a kid who is taking purely CCP courses and can earn double the credits and double the credit points than a kid taking straight AP courses. Because they can take, 6 courses first semester, in theory, 6 courses second semester for, let's say 12 credits. And this is all hypothetical, not really how it works, but, and a high school kid can only do 6 to an AP. All right, so it's a credit velocity. You can earn more quickly and earn more credit points, and their GPA can go up. All right. Other issues with ranking kids in general, and we're seeing this, and we've seen this for a while, is when we are looking at kind of a single rank, when we're ranking kids, that there's a lot of pressure on kids, especially kids who are really into this and really want to be Val or Sal. You're fighting it out. Some of these kids, and to me it's crazy, but there's kids in 8th grade right now plotting before that, planning their schedule, what they're going to take in 8th grade and all the way up, so they are going to be in a position to be valedictorian or salutatorian, things like that. And we're talking about in really fractions of a decimal point between our kids. We have so many talented kids that it's really, it's insignificant differences between the kids and their grades. We're looking at very small positions. So a lot of kids are avoiding kind of their passions. You know, they're avoiding unweighted grades, unweighted classes, because it doesn't get them to 5 points. They're avoiding band. They're avoiding choir, the art classes, some of the electives that are out there and very valuable. You know, cooking classes, things they need to know for life. Because they won't take them because it doesn't add to GPA. All right? And I come from a background that I would like kids to know a little bit of everything. Be good at a little bit of everything. Don't just be so locked in that you're locked yourself into a schedule. Here's what I have to take for the chance, just the chance, of being valedictorian or salutatorian. And they won't take those classes, the unweighted classes, things they may enjoy and things they may benefit from, because of a fear that it will negatively affect their ranking. So this current system really incentivizes credit loading, so taking as many credits as you can and as many weighted classes as you can, rather than, again, that kind of deep, meaningful learning that we like to see our kids do. And that leads also to burnout rather than balance. So mental health, physical health, things like that. So those are all things we, like to take into consideration here.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Do we, probably something I should know, but I don't, so I'm gonna ask. Does the high school have a sense of auditing a class for taking a class for no grade?
No, I'm sure that could be something policy, but it's not anything that's ever really happened.
Okay.
And I may have missed this, but is it mandated by the state that you have to do weighted GPA, and that has to be the factor that you consider for valedictorian and salutatorian? Or can the school do their own thing?
I'm sure of it. I mean, I don't think it, well, it's whatever we do needs to be treated the same. You can't favor APs or another class.
No, I don't mean that. I mean, if you just took a GPA and that's it, and you didn't use these.
Right. You don't have to have valedictorian at all if you don't want to. And there's different ways of figuring it. Some schools, for example, I'm going to get to it here in a minute.
Okay.
But there's a wide variety of ways people are doing this. Although most schools are going away from it altogether.
Really?
Yep. And I'll talk about that in a minute as we go here.
I think your question is if there's no unweighted GPAs, anybody that would get an A would have a 4.0. So you'd have a lot of kids with a 4.0 because there would be no differentiator. Is that what you're asking?
No, it's more like whether you have to do the weighted at all, because that leads to this gamesmanship.
Right.
It's just like I'm going to take a bunch of CCP classes so I can get these 10 times whatever bonuses, and it I guess incentivizes all the things that you just pointed out that are not desirable. People not taking what they're really interested in because they're trying to game the system by taking.
In theory, you could go back to the old way of saying, okay, we're going to pick somebody who's going to be a speaker and call them valedictorian. I mean, because if you look back, I started creating a database. I did it when I was in our band. I did here. I started going back, number of kids who graduated, where was graduation, who was a principal, who was a valedictorian, who was a salutatorian, going back. You get to a certain point, and you realize it has nothing to do with grades. Correct? So before the 50s, it had nothing to do with grades. It was kind of like, you're a good speaker, you're going to get the valedictory speech, congratulations, You know, are you really the valedictorian as we know it now? Not necessarily, no. But you gave the speech, so your title, you know, you gave the valedictory speech. So in theory, you could do that. Now back when
But I
we
think
were,
that would lead to, I'm sorry, Norm, I think that would lead to a lot of people with 4.0s.
it would, and then
So
it's
you'd
going to
have-
be it's going to be a talent contest to who,
Right.
you know, it's going to
Yeah.
be, it causes other problems, right?
Well,
So if
yeah.
we're going to declare somebody a valedictorian based on unweighted GPA and maybe whatever else we choose, we like you better, we like your hair, you're a good speaker, you can sing, you know, then it becomes a popularity contest and people are going to be arguing about that, and it's just, it's drama we don't need at the end of the year with a group of kids who are getting ready to graduate together, have come up through kindergarten together, a lot of them, and then you end up with unhealthy sometimes competition and divisiveness, you know, that you rather wrap their year up with, hey, yes, we're going out together, let's go, instead of, you know, they picked him over me, or picked her
Yeah,
over me.
unweighted, even if you didn't have a whole bunch of 4.0s, people gamed that system too. I mean, I can say in my own high school class, the valedictorian technically had the 4.0 and the salutatorian probably had a 3.95 or something. The 4.0 took 4 years of art, 4 years of band, things that, this isn't offensive, but traditionally are easier A's. The salutatorian took AP, like extra, like 2 science classes in 1 year. Both of them AP, like had a much more rigorous schedule. And so I think people who were close and were in that 4.0, they would take all easy classes senior year so to not screw that up, you know?
The
So I
kids are- they're
mean,
gonna
no
figure out
matter
the
how you
rules
do
on
it,
that.
people gamed that system too, right?
It's not really gaming the system, it's
Well,
the rules.
they played
You know,
that game,
you're
right?
playing the
And
rules.
so it's not that just, if you're asking about weighted, and if you just used unweighted, it had similar issues, right?
So here's the thing, you know, we're probably similar age, right? So similar thing when I was in high school. I look older, okay, I look older, okay? I look
I think
older.
we're probably the exact same.
But we're very similar in age, right? So we have similar high school experiences and you know, what a valedictorian was back then and what it meant and all those things. It's all evolving. Rank doesn't necessarily drive admissions anymore. They're looking more holistically. Most schools are looking at students holistically. They're not saying, okay, kid's number 1, because the kid who's number 1 at, the kid who's number 30 at Bellbrook could be number 1 a district away. Okay? They're looking at strength of curriculum. They're looking at, are you taking all the classes you can take in your school? Are you taking the, you know, are you challenging yourself? Are you being successful? And then I had this discussion, this is funny, probably 17 years ago, when we went away from the straight 4, 3, 2, 1 to adding pluses and minuses, help differentiate things. People were afraid, oh, that's gonna, you know, that's gonna pick our kids at 3.67, that's gonna hurt their GPA. And I said, no, that's not what happens. Okay, so the college is gonna take whatever grades you have, and they're gonna recalculate your GPA on their own terms. Some colleges look at only your core courses and calculate that. Some will throw out, you know, band and art, and they'll do this. Some schools are on a 5-point scale, some are on a 6. There are some in North Carolina that are on a 9. I don't know how that works. Okay, so they're not comparing, they want to put them all on one scale, so the colleges will take your grades, reconfigure it all, recalculate everything, so they're comparing everybody on an even playing field, okay, if they're using GPAs at all. And then our school profile gives that context. It shows what we offer, how we do our grading, how we calculate things, so the colleges know what the context is behind that. And then again, like, there's no money tied to balance out anymore. Back in the day, they might have been the last one still doing that, but they've gone away from it too, because again, so many schools have gone away from it. And again, a valedictorian at one school is not necessarily equal to a valedictorian at another school. You know, that's just how it is. So we are not the only ones kind of grappling with this. I'm way behind on this. I'm sorry.
Mr. Good, do you think
Yes.
that the credit loading pushes kids out of our AP classes? Have you noticed that?
Our AP classes are still pretty full.
Okay.
But, you know, it's kind of interesting. So usually our top kids, and I mean, we have a lot of top kids, right? So I'm talking the top kids always they're gonna load up on the AP courses. Some of our other kids who may not see as much benefit in that, they're gonna stay here, they're gonna go to, you know, Wright State or Cincinnati or, you know, Miami or Ohio State, somewhere in state. They may load up on the CCP courses because, one, financial situation. You know, they can pick up a lot of credits cheap or for free, and which saves them money later. And they know they'll transfer, and it's good. So again, it's a great program for those kids, you know, but it's not the right program for everybody. But everyone has to make their own choice which pathway they're going to fall. And most of our kids do a combination. They may take 8 AP courses and 5 CCP courses, or 8 and 8 or whatever. They're going to maximize what they have. Okay, so again, we're not the only people going through this and talking about this. I think Mason was kind of the first person to make a move right after COVID. They got away from valedictorian, salutatorian altogether because of the unhealthy competition and the mental health issues and things like that. But since that time, many of our local schools, let's put it that way, Beaver Creek, Centerville, Oakwood, Spring Grove, again, Mason, Indian Hill, some more, you know, local schools, but then also all those schools, you know, I get to present, talk about our similar districts, them too. You get a chance, Anthony Wayne, Aurora, Avon Lake, Bexley, they've all gone to something else, a more inclusive system, kind of getting away from it altogether. So that's kind of where a lot of people are going. Not saying necessarily that's where we're going, but you know, I think that's a discussion I'd like to have in the future about that. So here's the thing, and I mentioned it before. Our standards of excellence are evolving simply because we have so many exceptional kids. For example, last year I think we had 55 kids graduate with over a 4-point GPA. And this year is going to be very similar, if not higher. So again, when we're talking about battling it out for the top 2 or 3 spots, fractions of the percentage. So, we've looked at a few things that some other districts are doing. There's different options out there. Dublin did something very interesting, and I don't recommend this, but they have something called a threshold valedictorian. So everybody had a 4.1 or above was valedictorian. We're all valedictorian.
This screams
They
everything.
had 297 valedictorians last year. You know, they have 3 high schools, 297 valedictorians at Dublin last year. So again, if everyone's valedictorian, nobody's valedictorian, right? Again, all great students, you know, but it kind of shows you what the title means in the state at this point. That's what Dublin did. Mason went to a Latin honor system altogether. And like we recognize kids cum laude, magna cum laude, summa cum laude. That's what they do, and that's it. Brecksville Broadview, they did something a little more complicated. They were using GPA, ACT, SAT, clubs, activities, things like that. But again, that was to determine Latin honors. They went away from valedictorian. And there's some other schools that just do a shadow rank, kind of what we say we're doing, in which we don't rank at all, and we just kind of keep a quiet rank and use it for scholarships that require it. All right, so there's different options out there. You know, and there was talk last time about 7 versus 8. You know, when we determine valedictorian, and there's discussion there. Almost all the schools do it after 7. There are different reasons for that. Some of them grant credit semester by semester, which makes it easier for them to do that. We do it at the end of the year when you've completed the entire class. And that gives kids a chance to recover from maybe a low grade quarter 1 to earn that credit. So, you know, there's ways we can do things. We could. I've been working with Rebecca. There are ways to, you know, kind of create a 7-semester GPA using the first half of senior year classes. But there's some discussions there too. So it's kind of like, you know, given half a win for winning the first half of the basketball game. So there's, we can do that if that's what the board wants to do.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there a difference, like, I talked to a lot of other schools, they all take 7th semester GPAs, they all include the 7th semester year-long classes.
Most of those are semester, they give credit as semester. Beaver Creek does not.
But I mean, like,
Yeah.
so there's a way to add the
Right.
first, like, it's mathematically the same to add that
It's
semester, and then the
not
second semester.
necessarily.
Like, what would change? I mean, I'm just,
Well, I mean, for a semester grade, you're taking your first quarter, second quarter, doubling it, and adding an exam in, right? That's your semester. So, again, if I had a chalkboard, I can show you. It's not necessarily always going to end up in if you do it that way, you average 2 semesters together, it's not necessarily going to be the same outcome as if you do quarter, exam. It's not always the same. And again,
Am I understanding you right there? Because I think what you're talking about taking the 7th semester and doubling it.
no.
Or are we talking about taking the
what we
7th
would do is
semester and
just-
multiplying it by 0.5
Yes,
and
yes,
adding that in?
correct. If we're going to do it, that's what we would do, or want to do. Because I don't think you can project a full credit on.
right.
No,
No,
that
it's
would
not.
make that semester way more important than the other
Correct.
semester.
Correct. And again, though, and there's a philosophical debate on you're giving quality points for something for credits that have not been earned yet.
But only for the purposes of valedictorian and citation, and everything
Correct.
else, it wouldn't matter for anything else.
Correct. So that's the thing, no matter what system you use, and no matter what system any school uses, there's always room for movement. Whenever they declare it, even the schools that say they use 8, they're still calling it before the season's over. They're still making decisions and making estimations before the end of the school year. They're looking at going, that person's probably going to end up with this. We're going to estimate this. I made some phone calls too to different districts and said, okay, how are you doing this? Because the district I worked at before, Urbana used to do 8, and that was chaos. I'm trying to figure that out. But again, you're looking at going, we think they're going to end up that way. My wife works in Kettering. The questions they ask them are, they'll come around with the kids who are in the running. What do you think you're going to get? A few weeks before. And usually it probably plays out that way. But they also don't have, Montgomery County does not have the same things as far as recognition that Greene County does. So Greene County wants all of our information forced for brick. So there are timelines and deadlines that we face that.
County type recognition, like we're gonna put these kids on the TV commercial.
Well, not even that. That's a whole different thing. But it's the ESC awards and presentations and recognition of vowels and sows or whatever anybody else is doing. Because really, there's even in the county, I think we're one of the last, maybe 3 that do vowel and sow. Most of them are away from that too.
I mean, I think I might be missing something here, and maybe it's a very simplistic and uninformed question here, but okay, let's say school ends on seniors are done Wednesday before graduation. Grades go in, computer spits it out. On Thursday morning who's who. Why can't you then just say the valedictorian is Friday morning gets announced for the Saturday graduation? Why can't it be
Well,
done that way?
contractually, grades do not go in then. Teachers do not. They don't put the grades in before then.
They don't put them in before.
They all go in at the end of the year.
And that's
So
after graduation?
That's after graduation.
Okay.
So we're looking at with seniors at the end of the year, are they going to pass? We ask teachers, are they passing or not? If they're failing, that's a problem, and we can address that with those
Right.
kids, whether they're going to graduate or not. We're not focused on the final grade until, and plus you have CCE grades coming in, and again, the deadlines for county stuff is a month and a half before that. So that's why schools across the state do 7. And again, we can do something like that. It would be a change, and I think we could live with that. Other possibilities are, but again, the consensus of staff at the high school, and it's something we don't have to talk about now, but maybe in the fall, is we would like to move away from it altogether and get to Latin honors like most people in the state, and like the colleges and everything else, and kind of cut out the gamesmanship altogether. We're setting a standard.
Yeah.
50 kids can meet the standard.
Yeah.
It's all excellent. You don't get locked into saying, I have to take this class, this class, this class, this class to be the number one.
Yeah.
You know, it's more of a group recognition. You know, but again, that's for a later date. You know, for now, if we're talking about this, you know, if we want to do 7 semesters and use that, it's not really credit, it's a progress point, is what they would call it in Rebecca, which is our county computing system. We can do that. So we're okay with
I mean, some schools like Centerville, they update, you know, GPAs at the end of every semester.
because they grant credit semester.
Well,
After semester 1, they get half a credit.
Right.
Right, so is that the big issue, that we're not awarding credit for, like, say, first semester?
And for a school our size, it's very difficult to do
Right,
that.
right.
Because, okay, student A fails semester A.
Right, so it's
Next
kind of like
year,
apples to
you're-
oranges.
it's very,
Yeah.
we don't have the numbers of sections and numbers of, you know, for scheduling those kids for makeups next year, things like that. And when I talked to Springfield, the craziest thing, and frustrated me more than anything, is that semester I would pick up 6 kids in a class who failed last semester. Failed the same class last year.
Right.
And would just, you know,
Excuse you.
really screw up
Yeah, it does.
your whole dynamic sometimes, right?
Right, yeah.
So it's just, and they were a big school and big enough school where they could do that. It's really difficult for us as a school this size to, you know, we do a lot of cool things and offer a lot of cool things, but we don't have the numbers and the sections.
So if you went with the Latin honors system, then you still need, I suppose, would you still have a valedictorian and salutatorian?
No.
You wouldn't?
Are you talking about speech or talking about?
Yeah, for the speech.
We could. We could, you know, we have kids apply for it and things like that, like we do for musical acts and things like that. But I'm also guessing there's a lot of people out there who wouldn't mind having one less speech and
I mean, like the class president.
right, class president speaks.
Yeah, there we go.
You know, so sometimes you have kids who are valedictorian who really don't want any part of giving that speech.
Yeah, indeed.
You know, and they're, you know, and there's other kids who are awesome at it and can't wait. And there's other kids going, man, I have to do that. I'm like, yes, you do. Because you got the title, get up there and talk, right? So.
And I know you said the staff would be, you know, okay to move away from this. Have you,
Yes.
like, kind of surveyed the students to see how they feel about it?
Here's the thing with students, you're talking about, you have 230 kids in the graduating class, you have 4 kids out of 230 who may have a chance of getting this. So we're talking about a very small percentage of kids. So, and we haven't done a survey specifically, but talking to kids.
So it really mattered to like 4 kids, and
Correct.
then the rest of them were like.
Correct.
Okay.
And again, and the game's changed. I mean, back in the day, it did count for scholarships, it did, you know, things like that. It had more meaning that way, and was more competitive that way. Anymore, now it's just more of a, you know, you can say you can go the Macintoshes in 10 years and say, guess what, I was BHS valedictorian in 1993.
You're not on the alumni pages, they do say.
Well, you know, I'm thinking back, you know, I was trying to think about this the other day when I graduated from Massive Plains. One good friend was valedictorian. Couldn't tell you who the salutatorian was because, you know, it's big at the time, and as you go on, it's you remember other things from high school. So anyway, it's again, I like the tradition, you know, I'm a history guy, but when you really look at the history of it, the majority of its existence, those titles, had nothing to do with it. It was a role. It was a responsibility during the ceremony. So that's something we could go back to, something like that. Or again, have the class president talk, the person who was voted in by the students to represent the class, and you know, move forward that way too. So there's all sorts of options we could look at if that's something we decide to do.
Is there a timeline, a committee, or a plan, or is it just, this is just getting on the table now for?
I'm just throwing this out for, maybe you talk about this a little bit more in the fall maybe.
And it would be a phase in, like,
or just done?
I think we'd have to phase it in, you know, for the,
who've
obviously,
already
the sooner
been
we
chasing
start,
it.
the sooner
Like
we
the
phase it in,
incoming
right? But I
freshmen,
mean, you know, I wouldn't say, okay, guys, next year, sorry juniors, you're gonna be seniors, we're not gonna do it. It'd be
Right,
something
right.
you start probably with the freshmen
Okay.
or even the sophomores who haven't really had time to take much AP class, something like that. You know, you have to play that out a little bit. But again, all those classes they're taking, it's not like we're taking it away from them. They're still going into their GPA, going into their Latin rank, Latin honor, things like that. So anyway, a lot of moving pieces here, a lot of, you know, and God knows what the state will do tomorrow. We can get something else something else come down through the email and say, hey, we're adding this now too. But again, we're not the only ones talking about this. And most of the districts that are similar to us and most of our local districts have already made this move. So it's not like we're the tip of the spear on this. We're actually kind of behind in some ways. And this is something we've been talking about at the high school, at least internally, since 2015. Because when CCV came in, we went, oh my God, what is this going to do? And again, we've tried some steps in between to mitigate the effects. You know, again, weighting some of the honors classes and getting away from the .05s because that really skews it. And then moving to the weighted GPA to try to mitigate a little bit more. And it was successful, but it still doesn't, it still can't overcome the.
Do you think if you
yeah.
counted the first semester of year-long classes, you know, that would help make it more fair?
Slightly.
Okay.
Not
I
by
mean,
much.
Well, you know, Bellbrook-Sugarcreek doesn't award credit till the end either, but they still include
Right,
the
they're doing
semester
that, but
for
it
this.
may be slightly more,
For
but
award.
it's not gonna be perfect either.
I mean,
I tried to saw Beaver Creek up there on the list of
They-
people that didn't have
they-
it.
They stopped
do-
doing
they-
valedictorian, but they take a 7th semester GPA for other senior awards, and they include.
For the Latin
the-
honors.
You know,
For Latin honors.
Yeah, and.
Are our Latin honors currently have nothing, are based on?
It's the same, they're all based on the same thing.
They're not, they're not.
They're all based on the same thing, yeah.
So, I really don't think, you know, there would be any difference at the end of the year, adding at the semester grades into the GPA weighted as a semester course and then adding, you know, the second semester in, as opposed to waiting till the end. Like, because to me, it seems like it would be exactly the same. Those semester grades aren't changing, you know, regardless of what happens in the second semester.
Okay,
You know, like.
explain it to me.
I'm just saying how you can add in the semester grades to the GPA for this purpose, and it wouldn't be unfair at all. You would have, adding this both at the end is exactly the same as adding this first 7th semester weighted as a semester course, and then, you know, the next semester weighted as a semester.
We wouldn't wait in this semester, we wouldn't do a semester then another semester. It would be, that the semester grade that we would put in for this purpose
Yes.
would disappear, and the year
Well,
grade would
and
replace it.
that's fine, but I mean, it's
Four
the
quarters
same,
of
it's just, like, it's not gonna be, you know,
It's
a
similar, it's not
wrong
the same.
number.
It's similar, but it's not the same. Because of the way it's figured out. It's not a percentage, it's not based on a percentage.
I mean, for Val Sal purposes, you can
It's fine,
take
right.
the seventh semester and just whatever in time it is, right there.
Right.
It is only used for valedictorian,
Right.
it's not used for anything
Right,
else.
right.
Because the grade is 4 quarters of 2 semesters, it's not a semester and semester grade.
But you would even want to do that for Latin honors as well, I would think.
Right, we would-
I
we
mean,
would use it for-
otherwise,
we would use it for everything.
the kids
Sure.
who
Right.
are,
Right.
I mean, as I'm understanding it right now,
Right.
kids who are not taking any AP or CCP classes, but are A students, high B students, have a shot at those Latin honors,
Yeah.
and their whole senior year isn't counting.
Well, there's semester grades.
Well, only their semester
And
electives
again,
are
we're
counted.
okay with doing, we can make that change.
That's what all the schools are doing that I've talked to, so it's just more fair, because clearly there is an inherent, it's gonna be hard to compete with CCP. But it's a little better if you at least count, you know, what the kids are taking, because it's hard to tell a senior, oh yeah, you took 5 APs and a year-long CCP, none of that counts for your GPA or valedictorian.
Except that, you know, the only thing I would argue is the rules have been out there for 6 years.
Let's talk about that. Where have they been? Because I didn't hear about the rules. So where is it written that the 7th semester of year-long classes aren't going to count in your GPA for valedictorian?
it says in there that credit is granted upon completion of the
Credit
course.
isn't the same as
Credit and credit point,
everyone
that's,
else
well, that's
is
where,
having
credit-
it.
that's how, I don't want to argue about it. I'm just
Okay.
saying, that's how it's been understood, and that's how it's been explained for many years. And I think we put this in probably 2021, when we first started talking about this and presented this.
Well,
It could be clearer, and we can clean that up, that's fine.
it was never in any handbook of this current senior class that the board voted on, ever. It was first in the course guide a year ago for this class. That's the first time seventh semester was written. The year before, if you go back on board docs the first time I was in voting on a course guide, it was not in there. You can look at it on board docs, but last year, it was the first time. It just said, GPA, the valedictorian would be determined by seventh semester cumulative weighted GPA. There would be no mention and no way for anyone to know that, but we're not gonna take the grades from the seventh semester year-long classes. Like, nobody would think you would do that because it seems so unfair.
So where we're at right now is that
Does there need to be a board action to?
it is, I think,
Yeah.
I think we've all like dug in. There's pluses and minuses to all of these pros and cons and ways forward, right? I would personally like to hear in the coming months, I think probably June is the most appropriate time, because what I don't want is to have a giant fight about this that puts a cloud over whoever is the valedictorian, salutatorian this year. I don't want a whole fight about how they were selected was unfair in the public square. Like,
Yeah,
that
well,
is
nothing will
not
be changed
fair
for this
to
year.
kids who have been
You can't
working
expect that.
really, really hard toward this honor. After graduation is over, and maybe in June, I would personally like to hear a recommendation from the high school, hear a recommendation from you, Dr. Cosette, maybe even get some perspective from, I don't know, the Leadership Council of National Honor Society. What do those really high achieving kids think? Do they even give a squat? I don't know. I don't care about this issue personally a super ton, but
Yeah, I just wanna make sure what we're doing is.
make it fair, and I don't want to make it seem like the kids that are standing up there, the proud parents giving speeches, and they were selected unfairly, unjustly. That is an honor that they have absolutely earned, and we need to table this until June.
I can say all the students who have been selected were selected based on the rules in place.
Yeah, so there's two things here. So there's the next year with the handbook, making sure that things are clear and so forth, and so we're sticking with Val and Sal. Then those things need to be approved in the handbook and then also in board policy. But then there's the other long-term piece, which I think you're talking about. You mentioned September, whatever it is after this graduating class, that we then have a bigger conversation of what the future is. But probably for the handbook has to be approved in the next couple months here, so that people know when they're scheduling for classes, people can make changes, that they know the rules of the game going forward, and cleaning that up and making sure it's clear in the handbook and so forth.
So it
it's
sounds
two
like
things.
there might be a near-term and a longer-term thing. At least for the near term, could maybe a few people, and obviously everybody's willing to put input into it, but maybe take a look at the language just to see does it need to be a little bit more clear? Could it be more clear and explicit? Just for the near term, that seems like probably a good discussion point for you and Mr. Hay.
Well, I would hope for starting next year, that all the seventh semester grades are counted for Val, Sal, and Latin honors. But I don't mind in the future getting rid of them altogether. I totally see, nobody's in band all 4 years and gets to be valedictorian, no matter how well they do. And I had a niece who wanted to be valedictorian and couldn't take the choir, in her school. So I totally feel that. I do feel that there's so many kids who are just neck and neck, and they're all so awesome, and it does cause them stress worrying about it. I mean, I totally, if administration wants to move away from it, that is fine with me. And I do, while we're doing it though, I want it to be as fair as possible, and I believe that is counting all the seventh semester grades. So, that's my 2 cents.
It's something we can work on, and so when those handbooks come around and making sure it's clear, the 7th semester piece.
And again, if that's, you know, if that's what the board wants to do, we're okay with that. It's just a little different shift, but that's okay.
Can I say maybe as a way to wrap this up, how amazingly awesome it is that we can have a 45-minute discussion about this high achievement. I wrote down one of your slides, 55 students with a 4.0 plus GPA, and how many districts around the state are spending 45 minutes shouting about attendance and keeping kids not truant and how much Narcan they need in their bathrooms. And so I think it's just an amazing testimony to our incredible staff and teachers and our students that work so hard, and the values in our community and the home environments that we're blessed to have here in this district. That it's amazing that if this is the
55, it's one out of 4.
What's that?
That's about 1 out of 4 of your students, right?
Yeah.
Right at.
Don't ask him to do math.
Don't
ask him to do math.
It depends on the year. Sometimes it's less than that. It's probably 1 out of 3. So. But yeah, again, we have a lot of talented kids, and again, like I talk about this every year, not just in the classroom, but you know, musically, artistically, athletically, we're blessed across the board, and very proud to be principal of high schools.
Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, we are to number 6, our open communication period. Do we have anybody signed up? Nobody signed up? All right. So we do not have a need for open communication tonight. Thank you, Mr. Conti. Superintendent's report.
Yes. Thank you very much. So just have a few items here. 7A and B is the approval, for 7C approval of the consent agenda. So it's certificated license employment, resignation, leave of absence, supplemental duty, pupil activity, and then support staff employment, resignation, leave of absence. Motion for that.
So moved. Second?
Hey, we have a motion. Mrs. Thorne, seconded by Mrs. Anderson. Anything else?
No.
All right, questions? And please call the vote.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Dawn,
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Dr. Pryor.
Yes.
5 yeses.
All right, 8A, MOU, City of Bellbrook School Resource Officer, recommend approval of memorandum of understanding with the City of Bellbrook for school safety officers for the period November 29, 2025 through June 2029.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Anderson, then Dr. Pryor.
Again, we appreciate the partnership that we have with the City of Bellbrook. Officer Bennington is fantastic, working at both BCI and Stephen Bell, and glad that we're able to extend this through the 2028-2029 school year.
Thanks as well to the community that made this possible.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is a 50-50 split of cost between the district and the city.
And the city already just approved it on their side, right?
Yes, they approved it on their side.
So they went first, and now
Yep,
we're
correct.
concurring, so that's good
Correct.
news. So, yep. All right, please call the roll.
Mrs. Dawn,
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Dr. Pryor,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson.
Yes.
5 yeses.
All right, thank you. So items of information, or items of discussion information. So we are currently working with the township, with Sugarcreek Township, for a school resource officer. That is on their next meeting agenda next week. And so again, this is our 3rd year of a 3-year agreement. And so we had that in March of 2023, and then there was an addendum in June of 2023, which added so that was for one SRO. And then in June of that year, we had an addendum that essentially said we would like to have a second SRO. Right now, like Officer Black is at the middle school and high school, we would like an SRO at both the middle school and the high school, and to have one as soon as practical. And so that was June of 2023. So they have been working on trying to find that second SRO, and they
continue to have staffing challenges, that's a good word, thank you, challenges for not being able to fully staff their own department and thus can't then fulfill this second SRO position. So as we try to work with the township on some creative solutions to that, obviously our ideal solution would be having a second SRO and splitting the cost 50-50 on that second SRO. But as we try to find some creative solutions, that kind of leads us into the B draft job description. So one of those creative solutions that we have and that we are proposing, and propose this to the township, is to, since they essentially have earmarked funds for 2 SROs, that since they are having some issues or challenges with finding that SRO, that we would then, as a district, hire a school safety officer as a possibility. A school safety officer that would be a former police officer and preferred former SRO. And this person, and then with that, the township would take over 100% of the funding for that one SRO, and then we would use those funds that we would have paid for second SRO, 50%, we would use those funds to then fund our own school safety officer. And so we would, again, this proposal, this thought is to have that person mainly at the middle school. They would spend maybe a little time at the high school, but their main purpose would be at the middle school. And so, again, so this person, a couple priorities. Obviously, their first priority would be to protect the safety of the students and the staff. And so to do that, they would have a school security officer uniform on, but they would also have a weapon on them that openly carry. And so their other piece would be to help us with our safety audits, our safety plans, and provide some insight on those things also. So this person is not would help out with their active shooter response team, but they would not be necessarily a member of the active shooter response team, just because legally those are two different entities of how they are under the law. This person falls under a different part of the law than the active shooter response team, but obviously they would help with the active shooter response team. And obviously one of their main things, if someone in an active shooter situation, they obviously would be the one leading the charge and being that kind of person. Mr. Kinsey, if you want to add anything on that, or if there's any questions. I was trying to give a little background and so forth.
No, I think you covered it well. I just wanted to add, because I don't know, if some of you might not know, I was in 2 meetings with myself, Dr. Kozad, Barry Tiffany, the township administrator, and Sugarcreek Township Chief Mike Brown. What I love about it is this is one of those creative solutions. You might remember at our last joint city township park school meeting, we kind of asked about timeline, and everybody seemed open to, I think it was trustee Fred Kramer said, well, let's have some creative solutions. And this is one of those creative solutions that still honors very much and can fulfill the decision that was made jointly with the township and the schools in June of 2023 to township valuing, and obviously us valuing, having a full-time presence in the high school and a full-time presence in the middle school. So in those meetings with Mr. Tiffany and Chief Brown, they seemed to really like the idea. In fact, Sugarcreek Township Chief Brown was kind enough, he'd already kind of sent out an email, I think, to some folks, like Bellbrook Chief Carmen, but others, just being like, hey, this is maybe being talked about, do you know anybody who might be interested? And there's already quite a few names of, again, retired or maybe about to retire law enforcement officers, because that's in the job description as a requirement. So law enforcement officers who, I think there will be quite a few that would be interested in taking on that type of a role, not as a law enforcement officer, but as a school district employee. And again, that honors what the township had said about them valuing one person in each building and sharing the cost of that. So I think it's great.
What I like about it is that, well, among other things, but the cost is the same. You know, the township is paying what they had committed to the schools. It's no more. It's just that we're shifting, 50%, what would have been at the middle school from the township to the high school, 100%, and then we just ourselves pick up the other 100% by the person that would be the school employee at the middle school. But it also has the duties that really would kind of go beyond what the SRO would have anyhow, in terms of like, as you outlined there, just kind of, working with our manager, business manager about, there's just things that if you go around the schools, you see things, it's like, that's a vulnerability and whatnot, and it'll be their job to be like, hey, yeah, this door never latches back here, just things like that they would notice, or, I don't know, I just think it's a rather ingenious way of giving us control in a positive way that will have a district-wide impact, even though they're predominantly at the middle school. And I'm really excited about this as an alternative, because we've gone through 3 years with nothing, and that middle school has unfortunately been, not as protected as we would like to see, and that's going to change. And it should be comforting to our parents to recognize that we are going to be dealing with a former police officer, not someone that just we don't know anything about. There'll be really intense, review, interviews, and make sure this person's the right and stable fit for what we need. And so I think it's the best of all possible solutions. Because I had been wondering for some time if we could have a person that would be more like actually just a hired person who wasn't even going to serve an SRO function or security function, just to do some of the security things I talked about earlier, that looks for vulnerabilities, looks for maybe grants for Howard School, could maybe get some more help in certain security areas or whatever. Works with our manager, Mr. Eckley, on things he's having to do on top of everything else, and this person can kind of help identify things and be an aid to his primary responsibility in those areas. So I think it's an utter win-win, and I'm just really pretty darn happy about the way it's panning out.
I think it also fulfills the will of the voters who a few years ago did vote for that township levy, and part of what was advertised as part of that was, hey, we want to fund, with this money, we want to fund another SRO for your kids, and we haven't seen that come to fruition, and so to be able to see that, put in place, I think is, I don't know, it fulfills that commitment that the township made to the voters during that levy cycle, so that's another goodness.
And it fulfills a commitment that we made. One of our board goals is to always look through a lens of fiscal responsibility, and that this isn't new money. This is money that we kind of earmarked and budgeted back in June of 2023. So yeah, that's a good way to wrap up both the financial picture from the township and what they've been talking about for a couple of years, and same with us and the money that we allocated that has just kind of been sitting there for the last couple of years.
We're anticipating this would be in place by the upcoming school year.
That's the goal.
Very good.
So I have provided a proposal, MOU that would kind of explains what we explained here tonight of kind of the money piece and so forth. So we provided that to the township for their consideration.
Does one of us need to go to their next meeting to answer questions or advocate or speak?
That's Monday, right? Monday.
I can be there.
You want to walk us through as well?
Yeah. I'll be there.
Okay.
Will be discussed at the 7 o'clock meeting or the work session at 5:30 or.
Let me check with them. Let me check with them and let you know.
I was planning to go anyway just to watch, so if anybody else wants to go, let me know, because we cannot have three. We should not.
Well, we could if we sit in different parts.
We could.
Yeah, there's football games together, so I think we should all do.
We don't go together. We actually happen to be in the same place together, but we're not going together.
I think it's fine if you want to go represent the board as president. I think that's wise.
I don't.
I mean, that's great.
Obviously, Dr. Kozak can very well represent the school position on this and did it more eloquently than I did this evening. But I think it'd be good for someone to be there, and that's where the township will formalize what to date's been just verbally agreed to, correct?
With the,
The township-
this
the
kind of
township's shifting
proposal, this
100%.
piece.
Yeah, that's gonna be
So we
formalized
have
on-
verbally talked about that, correct?
And that's probably, we think that'll be formalized on Monday?
I am not sure.
All right, okay, all right.
Like I said, I've given them the proposal that has
Mhm.
that language
Okay.
in it. That particular part of the MOU, just to plug into the current MOU, because really nothing else
Right.
needs to be changed in the MOU except the dates and that
Okay.
particular, is it a paragraph or two, Mr. Gunham, maybe a paragraph or 2 or 3, somewhere in that
How about-
range.
You got that 2 paragraphs.
2 paragraphs, yeah, Mr. Gunham can work together on that. So. And so I will then, so this is the first draft of the job description, so if you want to take a look at that and let me know if there's any questions or thoughts or concerns or ideas on that. And so try to take that from other school safety officer positions that are in the area and so forth, and kind of put it into what kind of we wanted also. So we'll put that back on the next board agenda for approval. This is just the draft.
Anything else on that? Okay. Anybody have anything else in general? All right. I will take a motion to adjourn.
Move. Second.
Mrs. Dorn, seconded by Mrs. Anderson. When you're ready, sir, please call the roll.
Mr. Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Dr. Pryor,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Dawn.
Yes.
5 yeses.
All right, we're adjourned.